Hello, everyone. Welcome to the SIG Network Policy PI meeting. Today is April 22nd, 2025. This is a CNCF sponsored meeting, so let's follow the code of conduct and be nice to each other. All right, today is our first meeting after KubeCon, where we had a lot of productive discussions, and you can find all the results. We tried to write down all the intermediate and final decisions that we've taken here in this extra tab for better release discussion. So all the little things are here, and we've tried to create different cards to track the things that need to be done. All right, so now let's start with our agenda. I think Dan is the first one today with the last V1 Alpha 1 release.
Yeah, I just inserted that before your other agenda item since it seems to fit before them. But because yeah, we want to do this before we get too far on V1 Alpha 2, right?
Yes. So we had a list of things we want to do before that, right?
Well, I'm not sure that we actually have it written down. I was just looking for
Yeah.
that. Surya, do you know? I mean, because there's the issue in PR about getting rid of experimental.
Yes.
Is it just that and then the API review?
Oh, so the getting rid of the experimental is one. I think graduating networks to standard is the second one, which I have a PR open for. And then the third one is the Kubri based 1.32. And then, but that doesn't block the API review. So API review can happen in parallel once we land the first two bits. But before we cut the release, let's get it to this latest cube.
Okay, and I think the experimental was basically ready to merge, except that our CI is messed up. So I will deal with that.
Yeah, thank you.
And then
Do you want to write down the list of things, Surya, you just mentioned here in the description, maybe?
Yes, yeah, I should have done that
Thank you.
instead of storing it in my head, which is more heavy. I'll do that. Yeah. Where is this link again? 295.
Yeah, it's here in the agenda, first thing.
Are we going to wait for the CI, Dan? Or
it looks like Antonio mentioned a workaround, so I can try a PR to fix that. And if it doesn't work, I can just, force merge. Actually, I can do those in parallel.
okay, that sounds good. Let me know if you need any help with it, and thanks for reviewing it.
So it's this one, which is also part of our beta 1 dashboard, right?
Yeah, I think I added it.
Uh-huh.
I resurrected it from the stale
Okay.
label and everything, and I think it should be part of the dashboard.
Yeah, okay.
Although
cool.
I don't see it on the project side, which is sad. So if you go back to that
No,
issue,
I found it here, right? In progress. It's just that it's also a dependency for.
oh,
Where
I
is that
think
one?
it's
This
the
one.
PR, right? So I'm guessing the PR is in the
But I
dashboard,
think
not the issue.
Yeah, we mostly had the issues here, I think, and then when they're closed, well, okay. That's good.
Okay, so should we be adding the issues or the PRs on the issue?
Yeah, I think we've been adding issues mostly, especially if you have maybe a couple PRs to fix them. At least it looks like it. You see all the things here are issues.
Oh, the 275 is an issue, not the PR. Okay.
Yes, and the PR is also linked somewhere. No, actually it's not. Nothing is linked here yet. Okay, it's a pretty fresh issue, I guess.
Yeah,
so it
this
needs
one,
a list of things.
Yeah, the 275 is what has a PR, like the PR 284.
Yeah.
And then this one, once that is merged, I'll open a new PR, which I have to link to the V1 Alpha 1 cut, which I think needs Dan's blessing and Tim Hawkins. But I also have another PR for graduating networks to standard. I think that PR will have a conflict with the remove extended PR. So I guess the order of things is get the remove extended PR in, and then we get the networks standardization in. I open a PR for V6 API review, which Tim and Dan can hack, and then we cut the release. Oh, and we do the kube rebase. I'll write it down.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
How about the pointer to slicing issue for ports? Wouldn't that block the API review?
Well, I think the idea of V1 Alpha 1, the new cut, was just to have the API more or less as it is right now. So we're just promoting fields, and then the V1 Alpha 2 will be the one having all the changes, including, like, we also probably will have the ports to protocol change in there together with this pointer to a slice,
Gotcha.
probably in the same thing, if that works for you.
We might want to do the removing pointer to slice, because it's possible that, you know, a later release of the CRD generator tools will choke on the current CRD. So it might be good to fix
As
that.
far as I know, it already does.
No, sorry, yes, the CRD, the code generator, or one of the tools chokes on it and the other one doesn't. I get, yeah, the one that generates code does, but I forget, because people are using the current CRDs. There's one way of using them that works and one way that doesn't. Anyway, yeah, we should probably change that.
Okay, that sounds like its own project, more or less, but okay, maybe let's try to just list all the things here.
I guess the alternative is if, you know, if nobody currently implementing V1 Alpha 1 is having problems with that, they could just implement V1 Alpha 2 instead. Although maybe that will
Yeah, that's the question, because it's a change of the API, right? And everyone who kind of successfully implements it doesn't need to change anything
Yeah,
with our change.
I'm the one who would have needed it, so I'm fine if it's in Alpha 2. And yes, it is a change in API, so it makes sense to put that in Alpha 2. I just wasn't aware of what the timeline or what the order of steps is.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so I think Sarah will update the list here with just 3 extra issues from basically this project, really, to cut V1 Alpha 1. When they're done, the cut itself will also happen. And then for V1 Alpha 2, well, most of the things, or at least some of the things also from this dashboard, extra need to happen, which will also should have somewhere here. I don't know, maybe we need to file an issue for V1 Alpha 2 as soon as we are done with this one.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess sounds like a plan then. Or, I mean, I can also do it now and just have it half empty or try to list all the stuff in there. Okay, let me write it down. Okay, hopefully this will clarify everything, and then we'll make sure we have all the issues linked that are needed for all the intermediate releases, as we only have our project for V1 Beta 1. Okay, anything else on this topic? If not, then this project dashboard review is what I wanted to quickly go through. So we've been adding all the things that are required for Beta 1 based on what we've discussed already. Maybe there are some more things that need to be added. If so, just let's do this. One thing we wanted, I think, to make sure is that every issue here has an assignee who will be responsible for moving it forward. And that's one thing I wanted to discuss. So there are some assignees you can see here. And that's my next topics based on the things I have been working on. And
so
yeah.
Nadia, I have a question, because I'm staring at the to-dos and it seems like they're pretty out of date.
You mean the list or what's inside the issue?
Yeah, like, I don't know if we're going to do tenancy API. Best practices, it seems like that would change drastically with getting rid of BAMP. Sorry, the contents, not necessarily the semantic content.
Yeah, I think
What do we want to
actually
do about like kind of redoing these?
for tenancy, okay, wait a second, because they must have been added recently or something. Okay, so some of them were just resurrected because they were in the done list, so I didn't look at them, and now they are in to do again. So yeah, that's a good
Oh,
idea to actually
yeah,
maybe
I've
review
actually
them.
been cleaning the things that got auto-closed because of lifecycle rotten. But what I didn't know is that if I reopen, it comes back to your board because I think it was on the board from the beginning. And so when
Yeah, I guess so. So maybe this one can be removed, the conformance
Yeah,
test
I
for
don't know, like,
tenancy API.
can you, do we park it in a different board to avoid it from being
I mean,
sucked
we don't
in?
have a
Or I don't know
different
how
board,
it
but
works.
it will be still an open issue, so it's fine. It will be in the project. It just
Yeah,
will be removed from
Yeah,
this board. So I think that's
okay.
fine. Just do this. And then this best practices thing also looks like an old thing. So do we want that for beta one or no? Best
I think like
practices doc?
we should just probably rename it to write
yeah,
a best practices doc.
for
Okay,
AMP
just
and leave it
okay.
that. Yeah,
I see. Can we edit the issue we didn't open though?
retitle.
Okay, that works. If that works, that's fine. All right.
Or we could like close it and open a better one. It's just to keep things like consistent, because otherwise it's a little confusing.
Yeah. No, good point. Because also things
Can
written
you edit
here
the
may be
description?
not.
Yeah, like I don't know if that quite makes sense anymore.
Okay, yeah. Let me then maybe take a look at what's written here and see what makes more sense, retitling or just recreating the issue altogether. So next one is this, but I think that's fresh. So I think we want to work on it. Well, fresh is a strong word. Okay,
Maybe
Surya, you
not part
reopened
of
that
the.
one?
Yeah, I mean, I only reopened things that got closed. I
Yeah.
did not add them back to the board. So whether it should be in the board or not is up for debate. I
Uh-huh.
think we
I
I
think
think
it
it need
was
not
there,
be
so
because yeah. But I think it was there, and then I think we said maybe the ingress and PEP that you're working on might handle some of those questions, at least for load balancers and ingress with A and P support. But I don't know if there's anything more we need to.
okay, we'll remove it for now then, I guess, and then just
Yeah.
add it back if needed. We don't want to pollute the dashboard. And so tests for ingress and egress. That
Okay,
sounds
this one I think we should keep. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, sounds reasonable. So that's conformance improvements. And that's we've just looked at. And graduating networks is also something that's still needed. So I think at least this list should be all that's needed. Plus
There are
potentially extra
more
things.
conformance, but then
Yeah.
we can add that later. Based on how the API is changing and things, we can revisit it.
Yeah, that's something we still haven't quite completed because I think I added just reviewing the tests and what needs to be done somewhere here. So yeah, we need to make sure all the updates are there.
Yeah, like, do we want to just have an item called update scan and update conformance, and then based on that we file smaller bugs? I don't know what you guys have been running the project.
We already have
Like, there's some
smaller
high level
bugs,
bug,
like
and then there's like low level bugs, or we just keep the high level bug in the doc.
yeah, usually I've only been tracking low level bugs, so specific
I see.
gaps in tests that are missing. So some things I know is pod selector update changes, namespace selector update changes, and the ingress and egress changes of the fields. Some of this is tested, some of them not. So those things have been captured as cards. But when, let's say, Nadia's API does come into fruition when she does the CR for review, when you add that new tier, I think all of the baseline tests need to go away, right, for that. So that is cleanup work, which I hope will be part of her PR, because otherwise her PR will have CI red.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, and we also need to move. So we have already some bugs open or potentially auto-closed for the conformance tests.
By the way,
So
like,
we
do
just need
people
to
not
bring them
use the
back.
frozen status? Because I thought that was what the purpose was, to avoid having to bump it all the time.
It gets to frozen first, and then it gets closed. So
it gets
No,
to
it will never
rotten,
get
right?
closed out of frozen.
Frozen, you
Oh.
have to apply manually. It never
Yeah.
gets automatically applied. And yeah, in theory, if you do that, the bot should stop touching it.
But I thought frozen was we don't want to work on it anymore. I saw Boe do that on a couple of issues, and I thought, oh, Boe does not want us to work on these anymore.
No. Oh, okay. Oh, that's why I'm asking this question, because I use it to like we want to work on it, so stop closing it. But maybe that's not the meaning.
Now that you've educated us, I think we can use that, because I didn't know that that's
Yes.
what it's used for. Because
Because
frozen means the issue is frozen, nobody's going to do anything about it, kind of
no,
a
it
thing.
means
But
the life cycle is frozen. But anyways,
okay, yeah, let's use the frozen then for some of these issues, because that is really
Yeah.
helpful. Otherwise, it just goes
I mean,
stale.
I used to
it
go
goes
through and
rotten,
like freeze a lot of stuff. Maybe I was doing it wrong. Because it basically was like, I know this is important, you should never close this. And then because otherwise if you close it, and I've had like people comment, be like, why did you close it? I can't believe you closed it. I was like, oh, I don't want to deal with this.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I mean, if we don't want to work on it, we'll close it hopefully manually, and frozen just means don't touch it. So yeah, let's try to use that label. Okay, so yeah, so one more thing I wanted to mention is just I am actually working on these 3, and you can see which ones are assigned. I think Sura is doing networks graduation, and also something else, right? Okay, I feel like we are missing some more issues here for that were required for V1 Alpha 1.
Yeah, did we remove something?
I don't know. Yeah, anyway, just if yeah.
Oh,
If you
no,
see that,
Dan merged it, so it closed, I
yeah.
guess. So that's good.
Okay. Oh, so extended fields is the one, but that was also there.
Yeah, but yeah, I
Okay,
think
that's
gone.
cool. So
Great.
yeah. Okay, this one is also assigned, and then basically, Boe, I think you mentioned that you have some free time or willing to work on some of these things. So also feel free to assign
Yeah.
any
So
of those to
do we
yourself.
pick them up, or do you assign them? Like, what do you want to do?
We can do it like maybe. Yeah, if you're willing to pick some of them, I can assign them
Okay,
right now. So
I'll scan
there's
through
no
and pick some
conflict.
up.
Yeah. Or yeah, if you see just that it's already assigned, especially recently, then probably someone's working on it. But I see, like, yeah, the changing allowed to accept, I don't think it's assigned. Yeah, and there doesn't seem to be any PR, so I think you can pick this up, for example.
Okay, you can assign me.
Okay. Let me try. That works. Yay. Okay, that worked. Yeah, so this thing has to happen manually, I think. And then for tests, maybe we'll also figure out later. And this one we need to unassign or reassign. I don't think Yang is gonna do anything about it. Can you unassign someone? Is there a tag for that?
Yeah, I think unassign.
Unassign. It's very.
But I need to type the exact name, right?
Yeah, it's not assign like on like I don't know.
Does that look right? Let's see.
Yeah.
Unassign. Okay. I always forget where you need to put a dash or something like that.
It's
Assign,
cancel.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so this is unassigned now. Okay, so our dashboard looks more or less up to date. Yeah, let's add more things as we go here, just to make sure it's easy to track. And if anyone has time, they can pick up whatever is unassigned. Okay, any more questions or something we need to address here?
Just a thought there.
Yeah.
It'd be good to have a really rough cut of the changes to the CRDs, even if we haven't polished everything, just then can start hacking on the downstream code to, remove BAMP if we have the tier and priority field, for example. I don't know how far off we are from doing that.
Yeah, so that should happen with the NPAP, I mean, officially, I think. So first, there are like 2 stages. First, we need to merge and agree maybe on what we are going to do, and then there will be the second NPAP on top of that with the actual change to the repository. And I think while that PR is being reviewed, you can already start using it if current version seems okay to play with. So like there is this, I don't know if that was easy to follow, but there is this status of the NPAP. And this one, the provisional, I think means, I don't remember, I wrote it down what it means, I don't remember anymore, but that is like the first stage of the NPAP. And then when this is merged, there is supposed to be a second one that does the actual change to the APIs. So I think that's where you can start playing with that.
Mm-hmm.
Does it make sense? I don't know if you want that earlier, because I mean there are still a lot of questions, so it's not obvious which version to craft, to play with, considering there is no single agreement on on every decision here.
I just thought we'd agreed like broad strokes at least. Like I don't really care what the name of the tiers is or anything like that. Those are trivial to change later. I just thought it'd be good if we had the CRD with say the new tier field in it to be able to play around with.
That makes sense. Maybe you can leave a comment just in this NPAP like saying that, and then I'll go and try to create some work in progress PR for like the follow-up with random names and then change it later. If that would be useful, that's fine, I can do that.
Yeah, I was just thinking how can we parallelize a little bit? I know it's not approved and ready to go yet, but I know we're trying to get something together for November, so it's easy to eat into that if we don't have anything to code against at all.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I just didn't know that anyone is already trying to play with this change, for example. So if you just say that explicitly in the comment, that's good enough to create this extra work in progress.
Is that NPAP ready for like an extra round of review now, or sorry if I missed that.
Yeah, that's what I was about to bring up actually here, because that's what I'm trying to work on. I've answered to some of the comments, and I wanted to bring up the most controversial parts. It looks like we are in agreement on many things. One thing that has been discussed a bit more is the meaning of the pass action. So just talking about what exactly it means. Should it always pass to the network policy layer, or does it mean like kind of return from the current tier? That's the discussion that we're having, and if people could pay more attention to that thread, you can easily find it in the NPAP. That would be nice. So that's one thing we need to figure out. But another controversial discussion I wanted to bring up based on that one. So there was an example from Dan saying, like, thinking about potentially new tiers, and a provider tier example was brought up as something that could have a higher priority than the ANP that we have right now, which together with our struggle for the naming of tiers made me think if we actually should get back to the discussion of renaming admin network policy to cluster network policy, and then calling the tiers admin and baseline, considering we could at some point have like provider tier, let's say, and provider is obviously not an admin, so it's a bit strange to have that in admin network policy.
So
yeah,
I just want to give a little bit more. So I was thinking about the semantics of pass if we added more tiers. And so I gave the provider tier as just a, here's something that theoretically we might decide to do in the future. And if we did this, it sort of interacts weirdly with pass, because the use case is you want to be able to pass from the provider tier to the plain network policy tier, skipping over the admin tier. And there would be no way to do that. So, I brought it up just to motivate that example. not necessarily saying that we necessarily want to do it. But yeah, if we are ever potentially going to add more tiers, then we probably do need to think more carefully about the naming of the first tiers now.
Right, and I think we mentioned that cluster network policy was problematic because of potential naming conflict with multi-cluster, which I couldn't properly follow because multi-cluster and cluster are different words. So what's exactly the conflict there?
The theory was that if multi-cluster also needed to have a distinction between developer policies and admin policies, and we called the admin one cluster network policy, then the multi-cluster version would be multi-cluster cluster network policy.
Yes. No, they would be multi-cluster policy, tier admin, and tier whatever, developer, maybe.
Yeah, but isn't your future self more creative than your present self?
That seems risky.
Future self will solve the problem.
But anyway, that was, you might want to check the original KEP discussion, but from what I remember, that was the really only reason for renaming from cluster to admin was that, because people even pointed out that cluster fits better with some existing objects like role binding versus cluster role binding, right?
Yeah, but sorry, so multi-cluster, why would you call it a multi-cluster cluster network policy? Like that just seems suspicious. Like why would you need to have the same name, I guess?
Well, I mean, you would want to have the same name to make it clear that it was parallel to this other single cluster object, right? I mean, that's the idea. But yeah, this is all based on theoretical
I don't know.
APIs that don't
Seems a little
exist.
dubious, but anyways.
Yeah, also it could be
If
applied
they
to
were-
anything.
If they were going to do multi-cluster cluster role binding, they would just call it multi-cluster cluster role binding, and it would be fine.
Yes,
Or
right.
multi-cluster
just-
role binding.
The key is if we're going to do it, we just have to get there first and have our make sure we get the name before someone else wants.
Yeah, I think
I just think it's weird because you're calling a multi-cluster thing a single cluster. I don't know, like why would that exist? But anyways.
I think the way we looked at it before was we went with the personas. So we said we'll do an admin network policy and then we'll do the baseline admin, but put the admin in it to make it extra clear it's for admins. And then we envisioned a developer network policy, which is network policies for developer persona. So if we want to change it from the persona naming scheme to a little, because the tiers are doing it for us, to generic cluster network policy, would the network policy v2 just be network policy v2? Because I find it weird that there we would bring in developer network policy in the future.
Yeah, that makes it a bit more complicated. You don't want to call it namespace network policy, I don't think.
Yeah.
But that would be actually very obvious about what the difference is.
Yeah.
Global network policy.
Yeah, thank you. That would solve all our problems.
That's the Calico name.
So
yeah.
Are there other things that have admin and versus, because like technically we're creating like standard n+1 with admin versus the cluster with the cluster role binding. I don't, yeah.
There aren't a ton of APIs that have admin as a persona, right? Like, because for a long time, there's very explicitly no concept of admin, cluster admin versus end user. It was just flat. I guess. Well,
Yeah,
I guess,
I'm not super.
We've had RBAC forever
it
now.
Seems
But
fine. Like admin seems fine.
I'm not
Elsewhere seems
super
fine.
keen on having personas in the name. I feel like who should have access to something is an RBAC decision, whereas who the well, that's what I mean. Who the person
Yeah,
who should have access
it
to it
does.
is an RBAC decision rather than like what it the resource should express what it does rather than who it's for in its name. That would be my take, but I I don't feel super strongly on it. I don't want to get into bike shedding.
Yeah, I think like the biggest thing is this, like you've like sort of intentionally coupled things from the naming perspective, assuming that like it won't be used in awkward ways later, but maybe that's the point.
The other thing is if we rename from admin network policy to cluster network policy now, like, do we lose, our branding?
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need
that
something that
is
starts with
something.
A so that it's still A and P because everyone's lazy to pronounce it anyway.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point, the branding. We have advertised it too much now. Or we should keep calling it admin network policy, now known as cluster network policy. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, anyway, so we'll have to get back
But
on the
to come
tiers
back to that
discussion, maybe.
problem, yeah, that's what you were trying to raise, right? Like, so if we had admin network policy, then having a tier as admin makes no sense.
Yeah, that's another thing that we haven't resolved quite yet, and also in that NPAP.
you can still call the whole project admin network policy, not squished together as a word, but have the resource be called cluster network policy with admin and baseline tier.
I mean, the admin network policy working group presents to you two resources, cluster network policy and
Yeah, whatever. Like the resource name should not be marketing driven, I guess.
That's the only thing we have to advertise is our resources.
In that light, like it does make more. I care a little bit more because then you'd have cluster network policy, and then it's in the admin and the baseline tier. But that seems the most natural if you ignore all history and whatnot.
Yeah, it does feel like removing the B and P that we've been talking about for a long time. Well, in some way it's still there, but still. And at least leaving the name the same will make people less confused, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. I think Tim made the point that 99.9% of your users are ahead of you, or even there's probably more nines on this feature. So if we think it's better, even if we were going to start from scratch, we should probably switch.
Okay, well, don't know if there is a thread. Maybe I'll start one if there is a naming discussion separately in that NPAP.
Yeah, naming is hard.
Yeah.
But I don't think this one is like. If the only thing preventing us from using the cluster name is just the multi-cluster thing, I wouldn't put much weight on it personally, because the multi-cluster thing could very well behave very differently, and we wouldn't use the same thing anyways. Like we want to mix it up.
Yeah. That's an interesting discussion, especially like on a deeper level, if you should base the API on personas or not. It kind of makes sense that that's defined by the CRD, and potentially any user could edit admin network policies. Nothing prevents that from happening if they have the rights. So I don't know if that sounds like a separate NPAP to talk about that, or maybe we can try to have this discussion inside this one.
Yeah, more than the multi-cluster cluster, for me, it's do we want to go with the personas in naming, or where it lives, the scope of it in the naming, which is cluster, namespace, whatever, versus admin developer is the question, I guess.
Okay, well, let me see where it fits the best. I'll either.
I think it
Yeah.
can fit into the AMP BAMP merge one, and we could
Okay,
have the
yeah.
discussion there.
Okay, that sounds good. I'll try to write it down there maybe as an extra section now, also mentioning these details. I mean, the renaming of the resource itself was not a part of it, so maybe I'll make it and we can have a discussion there. And then about the meaning of the pass action, also, I think maybe it's easier if we continue the discussion in the thread for a little bit more, or does anyone, I don't know, have anything to add right now? There is
On
a
the
somewhat long thread.
yeah, not the past, but going back to that naming thing, one other idea
Ah.
I can think of is to send out a survey with options we think, and see what the community votes for. I don't know if that is something we want to try.
I wasn't
For
I
aware
mean,
things
of
we're
the
like
not saying that
discussion.
we should accept the survey,
Yeah.
right? We just
No, but I'm just
we can
saying for
see if
things
the
like this,
survey
I
will be
don't.
useful or not.
I
I
just think it's
wasn't
very
aware of the discussion,
heavyweight, and
so
if we're going to send out a survey, we should send out a survey for like multiple things at a time, if that makes sense. Because otherwise, oh, sorry, for all naming decisions, like we would just. I mean, that is useful at the end, I guess.
I don't know if anybody else can come up with better names than us, like end users. It's a long shot, but I don't know.
Like our experience from like at least the Gateway project was we sent out a survey, but then it was like we just made a choice at the end, for better or for worse.
Yeah, yeah, my goal was not that we should just do whatever the survey tells us. It was more like, will it provide more options or will it confuse us? I mean, at the end of the day, we can choose what we go with, but.
Okay, I think the first decision we'll have to make is whether to change it or not, and then if we decide it is reasonable to change it and have these problems we've just discussed, then picking up a name will be the next step. Yeah, all right. So I'll try to do that as a part of this PR. So getting back to the pass section, the thread is not too long, but still, do you want to continue maybe there for a little bit more? So one thing I wasn't sure that makes sense in that provider example from Dan is that the provider tier here that's used for the pass semantics example was supposed to override some bad admin network policies, which I'm not sure if that makes sense. As a cluster admin, I probably wouldn't want for that to happen.
So, but theoretically, the problem here potentially applies to adding the hard tenancy tier as well, right? The distinction between go to the next tier and go to the user's network policy rules become two different things as soon as we add another tier. That was the larger point.
Right. I guess one thing was also how you use pass action, because we don't have too many examples of it, and currently we mostly say, oh, passing is like just delegating a decision to the network policy, which I think means exactly the same from the admin point of view as I don't care what happens to this connection, basically. So, which in most cases would be expressed as no ANP for that connection. But that probably makes sense if you have some kind of a denial, but pod to pod can be passed, so I don't care about that. So as a kind of an exception. But yeah, please, if anyone else has like more different understandings or examples on what this action means or should mean in your opinion, just go to that thread and.
So I definitely see it as go to the next tier, and then we might add more tiers in future, and it would mean go to whichever one was next in the new world of having a tenancy tier or whatever tier. I'm not sure what the example of jumping from provider tier all the way to net policy was. I think I need to read it properly to understand. It's not the model that we have, so I would.
Couldn't you just do it with 2 passes, sorry, in succession?
Yes, but then you need that second pass there, right? Like, so
Yeah, like I just
especially in the case where
we
we're
need to
adding
cut
a
it off
tier.
at some point in terms of like, yeah, people are going to have to work a little harder.
Well, but so the issue is that we've always described it as end admin network policy processing and delegate directly to the user. And once we have the concept of tiers, if pass means go to the next tier, then it doesn't mean delegate to the user anymore. It means go to the next tier, which, might be the user tier or it might be something else. It's
So
a
in
semantic
Calico's
difference.
model,
Sorry, go ahead.
we tend to have you might have an early tier that is your like security teams tier, and then one for the platform, and then if you might have one more, but I can't think of one, and then you'd have the developer tier. So the security team kind of want to have guardrails around the cluster, but then when they delegate, they want to delegate to the platform team who are trying to solve a different problem of making sure that the platform itself is healthy and allows essential traffic, and then you delegate to the developers after that. So the natural meaning for me is to have it go to the next tier, because it's a delegation along this kind of priority axis where security team has the highest priority and they want to lock down your cluster in some way, but then they delegate to the platform team who are in charge of keeping the lights on, and then they delegate to the developers who can do whatever they want with their delegated stuff. That's my take on it.
Yep, that's I guess something that what I tried to say here. But this example is also nice, I find. So maybe if you can add it to
Okay,
to
I'll
this
have a read.
thread, yeah, please. Yeah, okay, let's figure it out there. So we don't spend the whole meeting on this point. Okay. All right. Oh, and then one more thing was based on our port versus protocol discussion. So what we've done here during the KubeCon is we've started with the perfect YAML that we would like to have. And basically the idea was to see if that's a good API. So I have created an NPAP for that, trying to explain what's happening there. But my main concern is I'm not sure, as we've discussed before, like whether this kind of API that looks good in YAML will be blessed by the API reviewers, because as a ghost struct, it could be pretty messy stuff with a lot of cell and like extra embedded fields that make sense when another field is set and doesn't make sense when it's not set. So I'm thinking of just crafting the actual API based on that YAML that we have, and then maybe asking for, I don't know if there is a way to do that, asking someone from like the API review team whether that is reasonable, or maybe they'll say it's the worst idea ever, and then it'll
I
help
think
us
it's fine.
somehow.
Like we should just go for it, and then if they say it sucks, then change it. I guess I'm plus oneing whatever you're going to
Yeah,
do.
I guess
We should just
just
go for it, because like, why not?
I just think showing just the YAML probably will not be good enough, because it doesn't show all the
Right, the
restrictions
ghost
that you have.
structure.
So yeah, I'll probably then have, and that's not what we usually do. So I'll probably just have all the stages of a usual NPAP in one with the API changes too, so that I can demonstrate how it's going to look like, and then see how bad that self-validation will be.
I think we
Okay, I
should
just
go
wanted,
for
yeah,
it,
I guess.
but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't give a heads up to potential reviewer or get an opinion. But I don't think we should block on it. I think we should move ahead with what we think is right, and maybe send it over to someone to just prime them in parallel in case they want to come back with a hard no. But I do think
Yeah.
we should be led by what the YAML what presents nice YAML. Feels like that should be an overriding concern.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I think we've agreed more or less on these syntaxes, and that's actually different. So one thing is that it's different from what we currently have, because now we have one extra layer here, putting that example into port number field, which I think was also like in the original cap, you know, and that decision was approved, and now we're getting a bit to more flat structure on that. Yeah, so that's why I wasn't also sure if that's going to be easily approved. But if everyone agrees that's a good YAML, at least I'll go ahead and try to convert that into the CRD. Please, if you have any comments on that, let me know sooner than later. Okay, that's basically my plan. I'll add a link here also, but you can find it in our dashboard somewhere. Okay, well, that was all the stuff from me, at least. Does anyone else want to add something to the agenda?
I must have missed it at the beginning. The pointer to slice, like that's been fully resolved.
No, pointer to slice is a part of this discussion now, because that will rework the port to protocol itself, the format of it. So, I mean, it only makes sense, I guess, to have that in the same NPAP, especially if we agree that's going to go to V1 Alpha 2. So that's hopefully a little less work. Yeah.
Unanimous agreement that we're not going to have a pointer to slice, and it's just going to be a slice.
Yes.
And then we're also planning to change the structure of the slice a bit under that change.
Yeah, exactly. So basically my current plan is just to try and craft like the YAML as we want to see it, and there will be no pointer to slice, but maybe we'll get a bit more back to that discussion into more details of like how many items we want, if we want them or not, or whatever, more related to that pointer to slice problem when we agree a bit more on the format of that protocols filter. If that makes sense. Okay, well, that's all we have on the agenda today then. One last chance to bring something else up. If not, then there are many things we've discussed today, so please feel free to add stuff to our dashboard if you have anything, update the issues we've discussed today, and please review the NPAPs. That will speed up our progress on everything we're doing here. And thanks to everyone who has already reviewed that. That's appreciated.
What level of like permissions do we need to add things to the dashboard? I think probably need to be. I
think anyone can do that, no?
Do we not need to be like a maintainer of the project or something? I don't have my maintainer badge. I was wondering if it was worth getting.
Can you open the link to the dashboard? It's here.
I think anyone can make changes.
Yeah, if you see this add item, that probably means you can, but I don't think I have any special rates. So you can also change status by dragging and dropping it between columns.
I don't think I have the add items button.
No?
But I'm not a member of the project. I let my
oh, maybe you just need to be a member of something.
Yeah,
you need a member of Kubernetes
6. I had a maintainer badge a very, very long time ago, but I let it lapse. So I probably need to be a member of Kubernetes 6, which I think needs a sponsorship from a couple of you guys if you're willing to do that.
Yeah, I think that's totally doable.
I think you have to be a Kubernetes member to be a member of Kubernetes SIGs. I don't remember the rules actually, but
I think they are unifying the two concepts. That's in progress. Anyway, I'll see if I can do that. I think you need 2 people to sign off on it, and they have to be from 2 different companies. So if folks who are present would be okay with doing that, then I might put my hat in.
Yeah, sure. You're doing a lot of stuff here, so I think that only makes sense. Let's just do that in Slack. That shouldn't be difficult.
Also thought it might be handy for when we have in-person meetings, and sometimes there's a members only room and all that kind of stuff. It's handy to have the membership, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah, makes total sense. Let's do that. And then in the meantime, if you really want to put something on the project, also just ping us on the channel.
Cool. Cheers, folks.
Okay, sounds good. Last 3 seconds to talk about something, or you're getting 6 minutes of free time. Okay, I think that wins. So thank you all for joining then. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.